What's up, guys? It is Modern Craftsman Monday.
Monday. Tilly, say Monday.
Monday.
Good job.
Well, all of this is going to make up for the oopsie-daisy we had this week. We had a technical difficulty. We had the guys over at Millhaven Homes on the podcast, and unfortunately, we had switched our software and lost that podcast. So already talked to them. They're going to be back on in a future episode. We're going to try to get that sooner than later so we can work it into our schedule. So this week is a little bit different. A lot of you guys have reached out on, based on the iTunes only allowing up to about 100 episodes to be listened to. I know Spotify, you can get all the way back to the first one, but those that are listening on iTunes, we're going to actually reshare this week the Kevin O'Connor episode. It was one of the most listened to and a fun one, if that.
Yeah, I feel like we definitely had some technical difficulties there. I feel like it was back to when we first started.
It was bad.
Serious struggle. We lost not all of us. Some of us, I was one of them, lost the recording, but I also feel as though the recording was not seamless in the first place.
No, it was, we started with Wi-Fi issues with the guest, and then for whatever reason, the software we switched to, I talked to them the next day, like, oh yeah, we had a huge outage last night. I was like, okay. She's like, yeah, this wouldn't happen normally, but yesterday was just a rare occurrence. I guess they had released an update and it didn't go so well.
Yeah, so, it didn't go so well for us.
No. So I'm actually excited to be able to redo that episode because I think we dug into quite a bit with them, but not everything that we had hoped for. So this gives us the opportunity to do that. But this week, guys, feel free to listen in to an old episode where Kevin O'Connor, we have Kevin O'Connor, myself, John, Tyler, as well as Ryan Mulkeen, actually head over there for some dinner with Kevin prior to recording this podcast.
What number podcast was that?
Oh, I knew you were going to ask that. I just had it open.
It is that long? I didn't realize it was that long ago.
It's right here. Hold on. It was like episode 40.
That's crazy.
October 28th, 2018.
That's nuts. I was going to say that would definitely still be on the...
Oh, I'm sorry. October 21st, not 28th.
Yeah. I still feel... I thought that would have been something that they could readily find, but I didn't realize it was that long ago because it's like 160 something now. 161, 162.
This is episode 162. Yeah,
with an asterisk.
Well, either way, guys, we appreciate you listening in any way, and apologize for this. It will be the first time we've actually reposted something. So those that have recently joined, enjoy this one, and those who have listened to this before, I'm sure a second go around at it wouldn't hurt.
Yeah, you can hear John and Kevin start bickering at each other. That was a fun night. Ryan and I drove up there I drove to Ryan's in Bergen County, which is about an hour and 45 minutes north of me. Then we drove from there up to Kevin's house, and then we were going to grab a hotel room or like get on the road, drive a little, grab a hotel room the next morning, drive the rest of the trip, and ended up just driving straight back that night. That was a super long day, but it was fun. I'm pretty sure I fell asleep on Ryan on the way home, but...
Well, guys, this episode is brought to you by Duration Moulding and Millwork. How long do you expect your build to last? Well, let's face it, if you're cladding your build with fiber cement siding, do you really expect it to go the long haul? Have you ever even thought about how someone would have to prep that material for the next coat of paint? Get the great look of wood with a product that wears like iron and will last as long as the rest of your build. To learn more about Duration Poly Ash products, please visit their website at durationmillwork.com.
First rule of IG. Is it?
It's definitely
your FaceTiming.
It was me. But I can't read my text because my phone doesn't work.
So during this podcast, we're going to also try to figure out how to turn John's phone off.
No, we're not. So we're at Kevin's humble abode.
House. You can call it a house.
Okay.
All right. Yep. It's not a secret.
We
I
had
mean, it is a secret.
Dinner.
That's what I was thinking. I was
Hey,
like,
shut the location.
It's
Wait a
not a
minute.
secret I have a house. It's a secret where the house is. The house fact is not secret.
Well, first
And
off,
you're all very welcome.
for dinner.
dinner
Thank
was
you.
awesome.
You're
Yes,
welcome.
it was
And
delicious.
dessert.
And dessert.
We still have to tip the help.
No, she's fine. She was so excited. The dessert was made by the 9-year-old daughter and the baking wife. The wife has a bakery business.
Does she?
Really?
Yeah.
In
I
town?
would weigh 500 pounds.
Seriously, right?
There's that's all I would eat. There's no chance.
Dude, you eat ice cream every night.
Wait, were you? Yeah, in bed, right?
No, not,
Right?
You were
What
definitely
do you
in bed
think
eating
I
ice cream. the
am?
other-
I mean, maybe I've done that once, but that is not like
In the
my
last week.
go-to.
Like the other night,
Yeah.
right?
No, I wasn't in bed. I was on the couch. Rachel was
Oh.
asleep. It was our anniversary, and she was sleeping, and I was serving myself ice cream.
They had like three different flavors.
And
in there.
to say romance is dead.
We'll send you stuff regularly. There's a
That-
lot of cutoffs and samples.
I also have a house.
That
You
is
can
also
send it
not
to.
a secret.
You have a farm.
Yeah, it's not really a secret. You guys, whatever.
So why are we at Kevin's house? And why is Ryan Mulkeen here?
Great question.
That is the question.
November 8th.
You're the
Chaperone.
This
you're
is
the
your
reason
fault.
all this came together,
Make
right?
sure Tyler made it up here safe and sound from New Jersey.
So that has to be told, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so I'll tell it.
Yeah.
You guys are slow on the uptake. So November 8th, we got the conference down in Jersey. We're all
Wow.
going to be there. And we had to brainstorm to figure out that we put something together that was worthwhile of the big audience. What, we're over 500-600 now. 700 or 800 if you're in TV. You always exaggerate.
Only
Millions.
2 people registered.
So the boys to my right and left, I was like, let's get together. And they're like, let's do it at your house. And I was like, you don't want to come up here, but okay.
We've only been asking for like 2 years.
So they came. I let them. And then at the last minute, Ryan's like, I got to get Tyler up there. He's going to feel left out. So they drove 6 hours from Jersey for this.
Our new podcast studio.
Yes.
Yeah.
We got a logo up.
Yeah.
Where do you want it?
I don't know.
Kev, what do you want it?
Let's get it on the screen.
You guys could use this as a podcast. I'd be
Done.
happy to rent it out too. Anybody
It's gonna
anybody
pay
play
for the
pool better
storage
than
of the
Ryan?
It's gonna pay for the storage of the new truck. Yeah. So Ryan had this idea.
Ryan, what was the idea? Lay it on us.
I think the idea was to follow up to the 2016 event. Follow up to having you guys all together the first time back in 2016, where we just thought we'd have you guys exposed to our core customers. And this year was kind of, a lot has changed in the past 2 years. And so how do we kind of get to that next level again? And, one of the ideas that we saw was not only a lot of guys were getting into Instagram, but what were some things that have been changing in the industry? What are a lot of things that are being talked about? And a lot of things that are being talked about is there's not a lot of people that want to come into this industry. And, as a supplier, as a lumber dealer, we want to make sure that there's a long line of customers ahead of us, right? It's totally self-serving at the base level. Without you guys, we're nothing, right? We need to be able to continue to supply quality-minded builders and remodelers that are looking for a different level of service, a different level of product, not just to be any old commodity. And I think, we looked at what you guys have continued to do since that event in 2016, and we said, hey, look, there's an opportunity to kind of inspire that next generation. And so at the base level, that's really what we're trying to do. It's only a short event. It's not going to change the world, but we're hoping that this event can be an opportunity just to trigger that conversation, bring all of you guys back. I think we have people signed up from 14, 15 different states, which 2 years ago, we were just a supplier in New Jersey, right? There was no reason for anybody to come to our event. And all of a sudden, this Instagram, this social media community came about. And now we have people that are following us from all around the country, looking forward to this event. I think just meeting people in person, reconnecting, kind of finding that base. So hopefully with this event, we can kind of have you guys all come together and trigger that conversation and continue that for 2 more years.
So
Right.
the goal with the panel discussion is to kind of get the ball rolling for the day. It's 45 minutes, but then that conversation can be carried out throughout the rest of the day with whoever, comes to the event, meets us. Like, it's not just 45 minutes in the morning and then we're out of there.
Yeah, no, it's 9:30 in the morning till 7:30 at night. So
that was a long day.
It's
last
10
night.
hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Like,
guys were
we were
shot.
beat
And
every
how
day.
much are you paying us for? Just so if it's 10 hours,
Hourly? Yeah, you guys are
All right.
getting short change.
so I'll figure when I
right.
can get
Did you,
out of
did
there.
you tell me it was 10 hours?
Free food.
I
Ryan,
think I underbid this.
Ryan, I had a question for you. Why go back to the same 3 guys again
Oh, that's a tough question.
and not go after a new crop?
I think because the original intent was just to expose you guys to our local customers. And I think that for whatever reason, whatever happened 2 years ago, it triggered a conversation that went national, right? There was IG meetups all of a sudden after that event. And people were working together, collaborating, and then all of a sudden just feeling this need to kind of connect personally. And I think to see that happen 2 years ago, in our industry, time flies by, right? These last 2 years, things have been going really well.
Look at Nick.
Yeah.
Dude, he's been like
Quick, Nick.
1,000 miles an hour.
Yeah, and I think it feels like a blink of the eye, right, in 2 years. And so I don't think a lot of time has really, truly passed by when you sit back to think about it, right? And I think to have you guys back in and say, look, this is that conversation that started 2 years ago is still being had, and that we can just see, I think, the way that people are being inspired, people that are opening up Instagram accounts. I thought we were kind of peaked out, and I think that we
Really?
start. I
I
feel
thought you were peaked out. That's what he really meant
That's
to
hurt-
say.
so
'Cause he
hurtful.
he was looking right at you when he said that.
I showed up for this?
I did. I thought that who wouldn't continue to open up accounts, and we have new accounts that are following us from around the country, and the content that I'm seeing with some of these guys today are stuff that I would see with you guys as a supplier, and I'm like, that is really, really quality work. And you don't have a lot of followers, but they're inspiring to me that all of a sudden they're jumping into this Instagram and sharing things with each other, I think, and trying to collaborate.
Well, I think it's super important to note that like you're a supplier, right? And your main customer is someone that's local to you. But I mean, we spoke earlier about how you're shipping more and more outside of your typical region, and the classical molding lineup is really picking up steam because people are being exposed to it, but you're exposing it in a manner where you're giving information and you're sharing information and you're connecting people through events like this, where it's all you're doing is give, and then people are like, wait, they also have a kick-ass product that I could incorporate into my build, and they're being inspired by what you're sharing from a knowledge, but also from the product that you guys put out.
No, I completely agree with that, and I think that Kukin's done a good job of bridging that gap between like materials. It's almost connecting the people together. It's from a vendor perspective, a material supplier. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it done successfully. To almost feel like you're a part of the team and to connect everyone and bring everyone together. Obviously, it's a business, but at the same time, I feel like there's more to it than just making money.
Yeah, you say it's self-serving, which in one way it is, but you're 2 years ago we sat up there and we talked about how we thought that people should brand themselves or how we should promote.
How scared were you?
I was so scared.
Dude, can we just touch on that for a second?
Seriously?
Yeah, I'm terrible.
That dude
with
hit the
public-
bathroom like 4 times before we
Yeah.
went on stage.
I'm not even.
I asked for the...
I'm terrible at public
Yeah.
speaking. And I'll do the same thing. I'll get
Yeah.
nervous, but I knew going up there that it would be something.
Special.
It would be something that would, like, there were people that like when Ryan's like, "Hey, people just flew in from Canada. Hey, people are flying in," and I'm like, "Oh
At
my
one point, I was like, can you stop telling me
Yeah.
all this information?
And I was like, all right, we have an opportunity to, we all have the same mentality, is that like we're there to help inspire. And I would speak for myself, where it's like, all right, I got up on stage and we talked, and I feel as though I talked a little bit too much about how to do, like, how to be good at social media, where
Mhm.
I'm not a social media expert, but that was, for me, that seemed like what my role was, because all right, I have success with this. I want to teach people how to do it. But looking back now, or looking to now, 2 years later, it's like that's not really what we're here for. We're not here to, hey, this is how you grow your Instagram following. What we're here is that, how are we bridging what we promote as culture and as work and quality to attract individuals into not just the trade globally, but your business, like my business. I think 2 years ago, I think I had maybe two guys, and today I have 13. And that was done. That was solely through Instagram, all 13. And the two people that I had 2 years ago, they're not even part of
Worth the
this.
right fit.
So with the keynote and what we're trying to establish with that, we just had the conversation tonight that we don't want to be regurgitating the same content, the same stuff that everyone, that we already have touched on over the course of the past 2 years. So Ryan brought Kevin in at this point, and Kevin's going to put a fresh set of eyes and a different perspective on this, and obviously has stake in bringing the younger generation in. So I mean, for you, Kevin, what do you want to get out of this? What is important for this event? You were pressing us to put us on the hot seat and to get answers tonight and to kind of establish where we're going to head with this and feel us out. What do you want to see and what do you want to get out of this? Because you don't have to be doing this.
You got an audience, right? There's going to be a small audience in the room, and you got a much bigger audience that's going to see this thing digitally, a whole bunch of formats for 2 years, maybe more. My job is to make sure that you don't disappoint your audience, which is very easy to do. People talk a lot. People get off point. People throw out stuff that's BS. And all I need to do is make sure that you guys please your audience. And that means keep you on point. That means focus the conversation. Hopefully it's going to mean make you a little uncomfortable because you've done it once. And no one cares if you're
check that box off.
No, but I mean, like the first time you talk to anybody, you're just like, that was a great conversation. You had a third time you had a cocktail party with the dude and he's saying the same thing. You're just like, that dude's a bore. So you guys can't be boring. You got to push the envelope a little bit. You've actually got to figure out what you want to talk to these people about. You've got a very small window to deliver a very big message. And if I do my job, I'm just going to facilitate that and be in the background. People, I don't practice this trade. I mean, despite the fact of what I do and who I do it for, I don't put food on the table by making sawdust and pleasing customers. At the end of the day, I'm the host of a television show, and the television show happens to be about carpentry and craftsmanship. But Tommy's the craftsman, and Norm's the craftsman, and Roger and Richard are the experts. I don't put food on the table doing that, so that's not my job. My job is to make sure that you guys get through to that audience and don't squander the opportunity. Because in my opinion, it's a big opportunity. So you got a big platform to deliver a message, and if you nail it, it'll live on, and if you squander it, it'll just fade away.
So I had the conversation with Ryan coming up here about what we're doing in Instagram stories, and that disappears when we're done with it. So there is something to be said for creating content that will live on past this day. It's not going to be 24 hours later and this whole keynote's going to be gone. So I think that it is important for us. We don't do what we're doing now for a living. We're making money with saw. I mean, Nick, not so much, but making sawdust. John, no.
How am I the only one in that boat?
But this isn't what we do professionally. So we get off topic.
If you think you're going to go make content, the world is awash in content.
Sure.
Everyone's making content. Your content will be swamped within minutes if you don't plant an idea that grabs hold. So the content thing is a good way to talk about it. It's a bad way to talk about it. Put it to the side. What you got to do is you got to plant a good idea that sort of transcends the content, because there's a million people making videos, there's a million people making podcasts, there's a million people making stories. They come and they go. You got to figure out what the idea is that's going to resonate with the person listening to it, and that's the thing that can't get swamped. the idea that sticks with them when the light bulb goes off in their head and said, holy mackerel, that guy's in exactly the same situation that I hope to be in. I'm going to listen. And that's the idea.
Right.
And so that's the hard part. Content's easy. Anyone can blather on, make a podcast, a story, and all that. It's the idea. You got to find the idea that transcends all the content.
I'll be honest, coming up, I guess what I foresaw with all of this was it was going to be more of a reiteration of everything that we've been doing. And, I think that we have burnt ourselves out on that and probably burnt other people out on that. And even having the conversation with Kevin tonight, asking the hot questions and, pushing and kind of gauging us and digging deeper into what we're doing, why we do it, looking for reasons and making us question deeper than what we've looked at. It's uncomfortable, but it's good, and it does spark the conversation. It sparks the interest, and it gets our ideas rolling as to, maybe there are other options or different ways to approach this than how we have been doing it. And I think if we bring that to the table rather than regurgitating everything that is already out there in an already overly saturated platform, that I think that that's going to be super beneficial to our audience.
It's not going to be Instagram in 2 years or 4 years or 5 years, and if it is, it's just going to be background noise, right? I mean, we didn't have the iPhone 10 years ago. The world changed, and so the only thing interesting to me, we'll discuss this and what comes out in 45 minutes because it's a short amount of time. The only thing that interests me about Instagram is what's changed since the last conversation 2 years ago, because the world has changed, right? People have hacked it, people have stolen it, people have manipulated it. They're running articles on how to get it out of your life, and you guys have now, you took the yellow pages that the old timers used, and you figured out a new way to invent the yellow pages to get your word out, and it was called Instagram. But in many respects, it's already changed from 2 years ago. And are you guys comfortable resting the entire marketing platform on something that people say sucks and is hacked? Maybe it's great, right? It's still growing and it's still working, but people are trying to figure out how to get this stuff out of their life.
Right.
So, what's going to be in 3-4 years? It'll go by like that. That's the only thing that interests me about the social aspect, because you guys, if you were at the front of it, you're probably pushing through to the point where you're almost a little cynical about it.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen the underbelly of it a little bit. You've figured it out. You've seen who's fake and who's real, and you're just kind of this is just another thing.
And then we've also seen the value of it. We've capitalized on it, and that's been taking up some of our time.
Yeah. That's what people want to learn. I think that's what your audience wants to learn, is just now where we are in 2018, what's the value? Where is it? And what's the valueless part of it?
Well, isn't part of this we've all been annoyed. I'm not speaking for Kevin here, but how everyone's jumped on a hashtag and everyone's jumped on some sort of a crusade, but actually hasn't put any blood, sweat, and tears into that to try and improve
Yeah, I think,
having a meetup with a bunch of guys at 9 o'clock at night drinking beers.
Right.
It's only going so far.
Yeah.
To make an impact in this industry. Let's be real.
Right. I think we're annoyed because we're exposed to it, and we're exposed to it because it's so in our face, where it's that. I think that's a big reason why we kind of sat back and took a breath with all this, is that, all right, we need to refocus our goal here, and our goal here is to truly drive others to be inspired by not just what we do, but what everyone does.
Well, I think we've also all realized we all have full-time jobs.
Of course.
And the amount of effort we can really drive into this isn't just throwaway effort. We have to put whatever we're going to go after, like Kevin's saying with this 45 minutes, it has to be targeted.
It has to stick.
Otherwise, we could all talk for 45 minutes in a heartbeat. We did tonight.
Right.
It's already 10 o'clock. But what is our efforts going to be towards?
Did I mention the 9 o'clock?
You did.
I'm not.
Right. In the very
I just didn't know
beginning.
you were aware of the time,
That's
Johnny.
Pacific time, right?
West Coast.
I think Kevin makes a good point. It's that we either, if you're not asking a question, then you need to be relating directly to someone. If you're relating to a struggle that they've had, that's when that conversation opens up. It's to speak specifically to content. It's here's my content. Here's the beautiful bathroom I did. Or it's hey, look, when you start talking, Johnny, you posted something about stress. like you probably got a ton of people like, oh my god, like that totally related with me. Or it's like then you post something, it's asking a question about it, like how they handle it. When others can relate to the position that you are in or you've been in, that's when that conversation just sticks, and it's a matter of how interesting.
It's just great. Like Ryan, you and I talked about the first time we sat down. These guys had their own businesses. I was coming from someone who didn't own my own company, and IG wasn't 100% my stuff, and I didn't know what I was bringing to the table. What I knew what I could bring. You and I talked about this a lot because I was like, I don't belong on stage with these two, and now I definitely don't belong on stage with these three. But it was
I concur.
Yeah, but it was it was.
We'd have more time to speak if we had one fewer
Then
person.
I'll do audio. I'll do whatever else. I'll do lights.
Tyler,
Whatever you guys need.
Tyler, can you find a flannel to match?
Yeah. I actually, mine's maroon.
Dude,
Mine's
I got
maroon.
some if you need
Do
it.
you?
Yeah.
All right.
Closet full.
I guess
I'll take your old ones.
nothing's changed since the last time.
Pre-bakery?
I got unwrapped ones.
Do you?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
Standard issue.
I got to get a TV show host job. You get wrapped?
You could host
flannels?
You could host Nick's show.
I've got a
That'd be
whole.
awesome.
He had Nick build him a closet for his flannels.
That's
when
a niche
Pro-
market.
pro bono.
Flannel closets.
Just so that you could create a story.
Man, it's yeah, that's not bad. Next, you got to get the wine cellar.
Yeah, I think sick.
No, I think we need to bring something to the table more so than what we have. I think that what we're doing in our marketing approach isn't the end-all be-all, and I don't think that that's going to solve the problems within the industry as much as we'd like to romanticize that and hope that it does. I think that there's different approaches, different techniques, different systems. There's got to be another way, because as Kevin just said, this window where this is what's hot, that's not going to be the case in 2 years from now. So we're putting a lot of effort into this, but I think that we need to create something that's more long-lasting than what we are right now.
You guys, I don't know how you see it. I mean, Ryan, you're a little bit of outside of this, so maybe you see it the similar way as I do. But I was saying this at dinner. You guys represent the three paths that you've taken. You represent just about the entire opportunity paths that are out there. The guy who stayed small and kept the tool belt on and is making a go of it. The guy who started small and put the tool belt down and is just managing it and has grown, but doing renovation. And then the guy who's in the development world who's dealing with the things that come with that, with the equity and acquisition. Like there's that is it right there in terms of the young people coming in thinking about what do I want to do and where do I want to be. You guys represent that. So tell them what it takes to get there and tell them what not to do. Like, this is what you do not to screw up, or this is what's going to happen to you no matter what happens. Between the three of you, your audience, and the paths that they're thinking about are all covered.
And with that said, all of us share the same values.
But I think that's why we've always been a good sounding board for each other. Podcast aside, group text messages even. I'm looking for advice for one of my jobs or how to deal with a customer. I shoot a group text message to Nick and John. Now I'm getting not only two different opinions, but two different perspectives. How to deal with that, what's right, what's wrong. So I think that it is good as far as our audience sees it. It's good for ourselves, and why I think that it has worked out so well, because each one of us has a completely separate path that we're on and that we're taking, but at the same time, we're kind of reaching towards a common goal. I think that's been good for all of us, and I think that there's potential for that to be extremely beneficial for other people.
And I think going back to the first time we did this sit down and I didn't think I belonged, I do think I've seen enough of this industry to think that part of it's dying. And
why do you say that? You say that a lot.
I know I do.
If it were dying, it'd be shrinking, wouldn't it?
Yeah. But
is it shrinking?
I think the quality of work and the definition of quality and craftsmanship has changed since the definition was constructed when, I got in the industry. Like master carpenter. Does that even exist?
No.
The people even know what that means, because products coming at you to simplify the execution part of it, because this goes also with architecture and all that. Our designs really, the real good designs are staying at the top 1% of the market, because the other 99% of the market can't execute it, and that's because part of it's dying.
So you can
The
walk
education
in.
of it.
So you can walk into a big box store right now and you can buy a refrigerator, right? The low cost refrigerator that comes off the aisle, and the thing's got an Energy Star stamp, and it uses $42 of electricity every year, and that's dying.
How long will that last?
Do you care?
Will your
Do you care how long it lasts?
Yeah, you do, because does
Why?
maintenance guys go in there and fix that, or do they just tell you that it's expendable and just to buy a new one?
What's the problem?
That's what the world has become.
Well, but
You can then throw stuff away, and how do you value quality if everything's throw away?
The veins coming out.
I
just
know
so
what
you
I know.
I'm not supposed to be stressed.
You're getting the
I'm not
vein.
supposed to be stressed.
I know what you're saying, and in a big picture, I don't disagree with it. But when it comes to the brass tacks, like I listened to my grandmother telling me stories about the Iceman who came around in a wagon and dropped a block of ice in that. And we take out these old buildings and we're looking at the coal chute and the ice bucket, and you're telling me that this is a bad thing, that it's $45 worth of electricity for a $350 refrigerator that works dead for 7 years, and because you got to throw it after then, we're going backwards from the Iceman? I'm just challenging
No,
here
and
because
I'm
you
you just
said
raised
the
your
word,
hand.
Tyler. You said it's romantic to believe that it's all gone
Okay,
to hell
okay.
and it's terrible.
Let's rephrase it.
Everything has gotten better.
You're a truck guy, right? You're
Yeah.
a car guy. Has the so is Ryan. The Barrett Jackson. So is all you guys are. But the Barrett Jackson car auction, is that the most popular it's ever been?
Dude, the first thing that happened when I bought that car, the 1972 Chevy Blazer that you're sitting above and haven't looked at yet, which I'm
Seriously.
offended by the way.
We should have the podcast in that thing.
Oh,
right
yeah,
now.
right? The first thing I thought when I drove that thing was, oh, my God, my other car is awesome. That thing's a ton of fun, but it rattled and it smelled.
So
and
why?
it
But why'd you buy it?
Because it's fun.
No. But what? That's the only reason.
Yes, because I'm getting old, and I got kids, and we go to the beach, and I'm like, the top is going to be off. This is a plaything.
So the Barrett Jackson car auction, it's getting the most, basically, attendance.
That's an emotional thing. It
No,
doesn't
no,
mean cars are bad.
It's the fact that you can't find that craftsmanship anywhere. No.
No, it's an emotional thing. It's an emotional thing.
I think.
I don't know what I mean, you're talking about the old cars, right?
Yeah. I think people value that because they can't find it anymore, and that that you can get the expendable, you can get the disposable cars that just come and go, and they're reliable. But there's something about that smoke and oil and gasoline and the hard steel frame that was made by people that doesn't exist anymore. That at the same time that there's this world of expendable stuff, that craftsmanship's truly valued.
I think. I mean,
He's
realistically, you're both taking a very polarizing approach to it. I mean, to play like the diplomat here, it's. I mean, we've spoken to it with like heating and conditioning a space and energy efficiency and everything else. Like, I think that we need to work more towards keeping tradition as far as design approach, and then bring in the newer, better materials to make a more comfortable space.
Well, I
Still
think
nailing that aesthetic, like with a newer car, to still, there's better technology out there to make a more comfortable car, a more efficient car, a more powerful car at a lower cost. But like, I don't think that we need to lose sight of what we came from and what made those cars like a good looking car and a functioning car in the first place.
So the reason why I bought an F100 is because I was fearful. This is where all of it comes from. Is that my kids will grow up and they won't be exposed to what that is.
What do you use for work every day?
My Tacoma, my
Why?
Toyota. Just reliability.
It's better.
No, it's reliable. Hey, okay.
It's
Let me finish.
It's right.
Okay. My point is that I didn't say it wasn't reliable. I didn't say my kids are probably going to have. They're not going to drive the F100 to high school. My point is that I wanted them to feel something beyond a push-button start car. That I wanted them to understand the nuts and bolts that go into it, because I think, just like this industry, that's being lost. When Pulte Homes or Toll Brothers has 42,000 closings in a year, that means the overall market, the U.S. of A., doesn't know what craftsmanship is if that many people are moving into something and they're cool with it. Efficiency, craftsmanship, details, all the above. What this little pocket, the little pocket that's going to be at Kukin, is the 1% or 0.02% of the market that we're speaking to. And if we don't use these mics and that audience to propel that further, then that percentage will get smaller, is my point.
I think it has a lot to do with the ethos behind your business too. The Vintage Builders is that the craftsmanship that it took to build that F100, the hands that built that truck, but mixed with you drive a Tacoma because it's reliable, and the homes that you built.
I haven't gotten a inspection stick on the F100. I'm just gonna be honest.
Really
I'm just gonna be honest.
I want
I'm missing a
I
bulb.
want my kids to know what it's like to get pulled over without an inspection sticker.
My kid loves it.
And to have to talk your way out of a ticket. No. I don't want my kids to have a car where they don't know how to talk their way out of a ticket.
Johnny,
show a little leg.
Johnny, you came to the Brookline job site that we're working on right now.
I brought the F100.
19, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't see it.
Seriously.
Payback.
You didn't show it to me. What can I tell you?
It's bright yellow.
I can't drive it onto the site.
Did you show it to me?
No, I said it's across the street.
No,
I even
Why
moved
do you
it.
think he's not going to see your new truck?
I moved
It's
it
like,
twice.
You didn't come to see mine. I'm not going to look at his truck.
No way.
I'm gonna block his Toyota thing with my Chevy Blazer. He's not gonna get out of my driveway until he
My
drives
eyes are
right
closed. My eyes are closed.
Get off the lawn. You can't drive on the lawn.
Not looking.
You came to the 1957 mid-century modern Brookline to come out, have burger, whatever. When you look at that house, the siding on that, the sheathing on that house,
T111.
1x8.
What?
Right.
That was T111.
1x8. Right? The gaps between the boards were already at a half an inch, maybe 3/4, because it had all dried out. What's better, 1x8 or plywood?
Oh, jeez.
What's better? What are you building your houses with?
I'm doing zip.
Yeah, so even better than ply is zip. Ply is better than 1x8. Zip's better than ply.
Okay.
Do your
hold on.
kids
Let me
are your kids gonna grow up worse because they don't know
Red light.
what Tommy Silver remembers when he did the diagonal 1x8?
Hold on.
Are they any worse off because you're building houses with zip panels, with
Okay,
zip walls?
I'm going to be straight up with you.
Zip
I'm doing that because the guys I have, the amount of money it would cost me to put 1x8 on a 45-degree angle to give me my shear doesn't exist.
Exactly.
So I want it to come back.
You'd build a house with 1x8
Because like
sheathing?
a Ken Vana house, you can specify anything you want and you get it.
Crazy, right? He's
But we
crazy.
can't
He
get
makes
that.
my case. He wants it to come back because he's a romantic. He's emotional. You're a machine. Robot. Just saying. But I'm saying it's a romantic
listen,
argument, and I get it,
John,
but it
Mike,
makes
smash
no
that TV.
sense.
Hold on.
Flip this
John,
table
it
over.
makes
no
This is where I'm
sense.
You are in the position that I'm in when you talk to me. So I am enjoying all of this.
Doesn't make sense.
But there's no way you'd
No, but I
build
want
a
it
house
back.
with 1x8.
I feel like the
Why?
never-ending story and the nothing's taking over the world, and what we love and what we grew up with doesn't exist anymore.
If you can sit there and spend your time and your energy and your smarts making that house 2 air changes per hour, and you apply your intelligence to that equation rather than the monotony of putting up 1x8 on an angle for shear strength, that house is better off because you've evolved to the point where you can give the customer 2 ACH. That house right now, the gaps between the 1x8, 70 years later, is 3/4 of an inch. It's a sieve bigger than the colander that I served you pasta out of
scrap wood
today.
so I can break it off my knee?
That I
as
served
get
you pasta
aggravated?
out of today.
Because my point is
The
that,
holes
like,
are bigger than the colander that my wife served you pasta out of today.
we're talking about something
stare at the
that's part of
pasta.
our industry, but
Is
look
it
at
9?
Canada. But look at Canada. They literally don't even know. So I would like to go back to how you cut in cross bracing into 2x for a wall instead of saying, hey, keep a window off the wall 3 feet and do your horizontal sheathing and shoot it in every 3 inches. Look at Canada. They have a windstorm and half the development will blow over. Like the industry in general, what we're talking about right here is you just do blowing of air.
No, I was inhaling because that's wildly different. I
No.
think
I think that it's
that
gotten
development.
so,
It wasn't. I mean, that
no, they don't have the code for structural, so they're just
Right.
going along the lines. But if there was,
that it was sheathed with foam
but like, how does it get to that point? Is my point.
because there's no code enforcement on that.
So the industry is basically wide open.
But that's
So
but
if we
you're
let that go
speaking
here, it's just
specifically-
Cowboys.
The Corvair went out of business. There was a Corvair while there was an F-150. The F-150 survived. The Corvair's dead. Everyone asks me this question whenever I get up on stage. Are the houses built today worse than the houses built way back when? Didn't they have better craftsmanship and quality? And I think that, and I say to myself, well, I don't know the exact answer, but I've dug into the numbers, and there's this thing called survivor bias. The house from 1860 that's sitting in Wellesley, that's been renovated 3 times, that people love, that's built like stone, is the one that survived. It was in a neighborhood filled with houses from 1860 that are gone because they were crap. Everyone thinks that the thing that's left, that's awesome, stood for everything back in its day. That's the surviving house. All the chicken coops and all the crappy homes that were built up around it were torn down and replaced by better houses. The Corvair is gone. The F-150 survived. Just because the F-150 survived does not mean that every car built back in that age. I'm sorry, I keep saying 150. What does that yellow thing you're driving? 110?
I don't drive. I
100.
drive a Taco.
100.
But I
The
think
100 survived, whatever. But there's a lot of cars that were built back then that didn't.
But I think
You've got the gem.
you're taking what was good about the old and applying the new to it. And
So-
it's the approach, it's the execution.
So
It's not-
exactly. My point is I know. Don't check my pulse.
Dun-dun,
Um,
dun-dun, dun-dun,
I don't feel any of it.
dun-dun.
I guess my thing is like, so 2 things here. I think I told you guys this story, and it's probably been on the podcast. Is I've had clients that I've worked for that they want to spend their money. So I had a client that bought a FJ Cruiser, old school. I was there when they delivered it, and he's like, "What do you think?" I go, "It smells like oil and gasoline." Loved it. Okay, it's got the nostalgia, got the feel. And then that client test drove it and whatever, and said it's just too bumpy. They want today's kind of everything they have, the comfort.
Barrett Jackson's
So-
busy.
So
but not everybody.
So my point is that I looked at Icon Bronco, Icon the company. They took that entire mentality and said, "Hey, I'm going to take that old love that you have, the Blazer, take it apart, dismantle it, take the whole thing apart, blow it up. I'm going to put everything that's new into it, and then all digital, new engine, Coyote, and then put the old frame and after it's been blasted and all that, and put it back together. So I'm going to give that client the old look with all the new technology. They took a
Right.
$30,000 truck, 38, 39, and then sold it for 120, 130,000. I live in Sherborne, an old town, 4,000 residents. It's all old architecture. I want to be inspired by those details that are lost because a CAD software or Autodesk, anyone we're not sponsored by, is spitting out details that any architect's going to put on paper, and then you're going to build without putting up a stink because it is what it is. Instead of saying I want a pigeon return to be whatever, my point with vintage and why I left a cushion job in a good paycheck was to take the same model that Icon had, was take, hey, everyone loves that old house. I know you have an old house, but they didn't want to buy it because of all the headaches because, A, they're not being exposed to this market. They know nothing about it. So it's like a mechanic. You don't want to bring your car in and get it checked out because you're just going to get hosed. It's the same thing that's been the fear for us, so people stay away from old houses. How about we build an old house with all the same details, but with all the new technology? That's my dream.
Which is putting woven corners of cedar shingles on zip sheathing
It might be that.
and get rid of the 1x8.
It might be that.
It is that. It is that.
Yeah, and that's
It's
I feel
got to
like
be
what,
efficiency with the
but that's
construction.
what
Yeah.
you can do. That's
Right.
what you can control to try and control certain aspects of that project for, again, like the romanticism there that like that's what I know or that's what they used to do when it doesn't really make sense. Where you are successful is basically like making sure that you're still nailing that traditional aesthetic with newer methods and newer materials.
So-
and I think that you've done a good job. Like, that's what you're doing every day.
But you know how many guys hit me up on IG, and they don't know what the old method was? Like the fact that I'm face nailing it, and I'm lining up with the studs, that they don't know what that is. The rock bottom thing, we talked about this earlier with Vogue schools. We want everyone to be in the trades, okay? Who's educating everyone that we get in the trades? Everyone's going to then shift to go to the unions because it's the only places where you can go to a hall and be educated, and it's not the same character and creativity that we are publicizing and putting out there.
Yeah, you're losing the history of.
No, there is no history. No one's teaching the backstory.
Well, that's what I'm saying. There's no one teaching the history of how that was developed, and you're trying to make that connection between what is being built today and what was being built 50 years ago.
You asked me about the flare today on the Cedar Clap.
Yeah.
That's in every hold house that's in my town and surrounding towns, probably in this area as well. Dude, no one knows about it. And why? It used to flare out to pitch water away from the foundation because they didn't have gutters. It's just, I'm talking to deaf ears, and I don't know if that's the point you're trying to get across, Kevin, since this isn't a video.
Well,
No.
is that I'm fine with being emotional and being,
No, I'm emotional. You are.
what am I?
What was he?
Romantic.
Romantic. I'm fine with being romantic
He's
about
robot.
it. Yeah. Is that I just feel like.
I mean, I nailed that, right? Yeah.
Really? Who said? Were you checking with him?
I got my people.
You have a mic. You can talk.
I didn't create these names for you guys.
But you have to approve or deny them.
I
You're-
thought
you're
I
like
was.
the-
I
you're
thought
the
I was
bias.
tatsy.
Kind
and
of
now all of a sudden now I'm
Emotional. Or
tatsy.
emo.
When I say emotional, I mean sensitive.
All right, that's good.
No, I mean, I think you switched a little bit on me because I was beating up on the 1x8, let's bring it back and all that kind of stuff. Like, I think you are right. Like, if the water table, if the flare, if the sort of reduced exposure to a larger exposure is effective, right? If it serves a purpose, then you got to grab that information and you got to get smart about it and you got to pass it on, and the next guy needs to know how to do it. But
Otherwise, it dies.
But if it's not effective, if it's just a throwback for throwback's sake, it's a waste of your time and you're not moving forward up the food chain. I can pull out all these presentations that I've done about the history of the American home, right? The romantic notion of the history of the American home. And I'm telling you, they weren't always that great, right? They were small, they were cramped, and people want to rail against big homes as if big homes are bad by nature or something like that. And I'm thinking to myself, 1950, average size of an American home was about 1,100 square feet, and the average number of people in it was 9 people, right? So think about the average square foot per person, and then you jump forward to 2014 or 2012, and it's 2,600 square feet, and it's 2.5 people on the average, right? Are we gratuitous? Are we bad? Well, if the house today consumes a third of the energy that it consumed back in 1950, and we can build it with the material, I mean, like, it's a better equation. It's so easy to sit there and say big is bad, new is bad, old is good, but it just confuses, to me, it just confuses the thing that's important. I'm looking at the computer right there that you guys spent 4 hours trying to plug in to get this whole system to
That's
Oh,
work,
hurtful.
right?
No one saw that. No one needs to know about it.
You don't know the first thing about how to program that,
Agreed.
right?
My kids probably do.
Is that bad? That thing's awesome. I mean, that's awesome what it does.
Yeah, and you're trying to say, would I want to go back to a typewriter?
No, but what I'm
I get it.
no, what I'm
That would be
saying
an
is
interesting
what I'm
podcast.
saying is-
analogy.
the fact that you don't understand it doesn't make it bad.
No,
I think
The
where
fact that the guy
difference-
doesn't know the little water, the flare on the water table, or the exposure reduced down toward it, like, if it's not effective, if it doesn't affect the, if it's just a look, if it's not a function thing, and he doesn't understand, it's not necessarily
Okay,
bad.
But
Do you-
I
do-
think that's where the difference is, though, that so much of the aesthetic from them was based on function.
both.
So, like,
both. Yes.
yeah, but, like, the flare at the bottom having more of a like, it doesn't have a function on your house at this point. You have gutters on it, but it's an aesthetic thing that you're, like, I think that nailing that detail the correct way, I think that you should understand why that's there. And I think that that's going to help you nail that detail correctly, but also knowing that that actually at this point does not serve a function. But like those details that we're putting on houses to maintain a traditional aesthetic integrity is still important, even though it's not functional. And I don't know if you necessarily have to know what that was for.
If that's what the customer wants.
Yes. But
If
I
that's what the
don't think
customer
you
wants.
necessarily
Does the
have
customer even know? In our job is to educate them and to present them with all the options. Because if you do not do that, you're not doing your job. Meaning if I give them, hey, XYZ, then their friend comes over for drinks, whatever, and he's an architect and go, hey, did you hear about this? And they didn't hear about it? They're going to turn to me and go, hey, why didn't you tell me about this, this, and this? I haven't done my job. Okay, the 6 of us here, it took me a second. I was going to include is,
Not only were you guys supposed to leave at 9, but there's only supposed to be 2 of you. Just if anyone's listening.
have you guys driven around? I mean, I don't know about Tyler in your area and Ryan. I get so aggravated by the stuff that's getting built around me.
We don't have nice houses near me.
But why?
The old homes do. There's many reasons,
Like,
and I think that so much of it, budget and education.
If I could go back and find the guy who created a split-level house and stop that before it happened, I would create a time machine, okay?
My
and
wife
fly
would
my
be
ass
so
back
upset.
there and
So
go, hey,
upset,
this
right?
isn't a good idea. I don't care how reality it makes sense to everybody and how efficient the construction is. We're not going to do this.
8 levels at the Brookline house. 8. 8, dude. There's 8.
I'm just saying. And
It's Century Mod's got 8 levels. And there's not a single. There's 4 steps between everything. It's
Everything.
unbelievable. You go crazy.
Super.
But like, what about like even vinyl siding when that took over the market? Why did no one raise their hand and go, was it depression? Was it money? Was it the fact that everything else became more expensive? How did again?
For me,
I'm
it's
39.
it's square footage. Like people are paying per square footage. So like, I worked on a brand new $1.4 million house. They were doing like a $500,000 backyard renovation, and it was literally vinyl sided with brick mold that came factory primed and not even wrapped.
So
And that was
I
it.
would puke and
That was
gag
it.
like I was on a binge drinking afternoon, and I should have stopped drinking at 3, and I kept going at 8. If I was on that job, that's how I would have felt.
But that's why you have people who want to come and work for you, and you ask
I know,
that
but
before.
I'm just.
But go back to like the car thing. Like, there's the market for it.
Right.
There's the market for
There's-
a Kia.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
there's
just-
people that want vinyl.
Yeah.
The reason
They're
vinyl
not my
siding-
client. That's fine.
Right.
But if you let that spread to be far enough that, go ahead.
No, it's absolutely an education thing, and it's absolutely how much attention you.
Who else is educating the client? The 1%ers are sitting back going, let everything fail. Let that people creep up because our value only gets stronger. And
Of course.
our
But you're saying how do we connect that? And we're doing that with like we're Instagram.
I'm not saying how.
Instagram is
Kevin's asking why.
I think that the education comes into like most. One is education, one is finding skilled labor, the other is budget. So like if you want the details and the details are important to you and they're important to your customer, then it's building that space. You know, it's going to have to be a smaller house. You're not going to get as big of a house with those details for that price. So like what we should be doing, if that's what fits your customer base and you, is say, hey, instead of a 10,000 square foot house, let's build a 6,000 square foot house and nail the details. You know,
Tyler,
instead
let me
of just building bigger.
Let me dig in on something on size if I can change it a little bit. You talk about skill, right? Skill isn't given. You're not born with skill, right? Skill is transferred through training. Someone has to teach skill. So can we agree to that? You know, you've got to practice, and you need to have somebody tell you and mentor you along the way, a teacher.
But you got to want it too.
Well, it's understood, but when you get it done, you gotta practice, and someone's got to pass that knowledge on to you, right? That's a difficult thing to do, and the bigger organizations get, the better they are at teaching. the better they are at putting in structures that are in place that they can transfer knowledge. You go to a big company. I didn't come through the same thing you guys came through. I came through finance. And when I came out of an MBA, I went right back into a training program. They said, that's great. You got this degree. We're going to put you right into a training program because you don't know anything that we need you to know. We're going to teach you. And they just taught me. And a big organization can do that, right? Your industry, our industry, is made up of tiny companies. I don't have the numbers completely memorized, but 60 some odd % of the construction companies out there are 4 people or fewer. You hit 70% and it goes to like 6 people. By about 90+%, it's under 10 people. If you want to talk about knowledge transfer and you want to talk about skill, size is a gigantic impediment to that. Your ability to teach Steve everything you know is hampered by the fact that you are busy all day long. And this industry is filled with a ton of small operators. The vast majority of the people in the construction industry have 12 or fewer people in their companies. 90+% and 60 or 70% are down to 4. That is a major impediment. And it's got to be something that's addressed.
Do we think that, I mean, as a whole, do we think that people know that and are aware of that? Because I know I had a conversation with Ryan today that these days are good for me because I get to leave Steve on the job by himself and I'm not down his throat. And I'm not saying, here, let me do that. So, like, I'm fully aware of that. And it needs me to step away from it in order for him to take what I taught him on his own. So, like, I don't know. Is the rest of the industry aware of that?
From what I see, they may be aware of it, but they're not reacting to it.
Like
and we talk about, the big organizations that actually are dropping knowledge and are spending infrastructure to train, and it turns out that they're the large unions. The big organizations that are actually, spending time and money to train tens of thousands of people. Now, you guys may not like what they're teaching, but I'm saying that's the infrastructure that's happening out there. Everybody else in this business is just trying to kind of suck it up and grab it and get it where they can. And most people are too busy trying to run a small small company of 6 people. They're too busy to spend all of that time to train these people. These are like systemic problems that are way bigger than the kind of the romantic emotional part of we just got to bring back the old school craft and teach this stuff to people. How? How are you going to teach it to one man when you've also got to put food on the table for both of you guys day in and day out? How are you going to do that?
But I think what Steve's picking up compared to the guy at Pulte, which is a bigger firm, is totally different.
Totally different, but I'm not necessarily any better. I'm not saying that the life at Pulte is great for the PM who comes in and spends 6 years doing it, and he's not going to build something that
I think we're trying to figure
shit.
out what.
But I bet you he learns a lot.
It's probably better than Steve's life, to be honest.
But I'm just trying to figure out.
I bet you he's going to learn a lot.
But what is the scale we're judging that education on?
Well, it's also the employee. Like, it works with Steve, too, because Steve wants to learn. So Steve's like, Steve's by my side, and Steve's eating. He's a sponge. He's taking all that in. But, that's why certain people don't working for me because, like, they don't want to absorb that. They just want to just be let loose and go do your thing and whatever it looks like. Come on, let's go. We got to get the next job. So, like, Steve, that's why Steve has been a good fit for me.
But where is your ongoing professional development?
That's the whole thing. It's very difficult to do while I'm on the job. And I had the conversation with Ryan today where I'm so immersed in what I'm doing that my best opportunity for Steve is to get him set up and then be like, go do that on your own. Like, I have questions or you have questions. I'm here. I'll answer your questions. Like, I taught you. Now you go learn on your own, and then we'll go over what you need to.
But where were you taught?
Honestly,
yeah,
I screwed a lot of stuff up.
Same here. Going back, I didn't have a company that was big enough to educate me. Their goal was never to train me. all the way through my career.
But what if we're an exception to the rule, the way that we learned and how quickly
But
we
maybe that
learned?
might be the norm for the industry, is that you're in the mix, you're in the the thick of it, and if you take out what you can, you do. It's not an actual program set in stone where you go and sit in front of a screen for the next 10 hours.
Isn't that exactly what you guys are doing with social media? You guys are
Totally.
showing
Yeah.
Totally.
you every single day.
It's
You guys
Ryan
are
Mulkeen, Kukin Brothers.
you guys are showing.
Brand new
You guys, this is this new education platform, and again, it's not just about IG, right? As Kevin pointed out earlier, that's going to be gone 2 years from now. But there's something that's happening where you guys are now all collaborating.
Yes.
You don't have to all meet once every other Thursday and pay your $250 dues
Yep.
in order to be a part of an organization that just one person leads the charge. It's you guys are all just putting stuff out there when you guys are dealing with it, and people are gravitating towards you for one reason or another, or they're gravitating towards somebody else. And I think that's that sense of community that for whatever reason is happening here. And there are the unions that are doing it on a super large scale. There's a Pulte Homes that's building for that clientele, but there's a lot of houses out there and a lot of clients that aren't just going to have that commodity product. There's a lot of people that want to have that customization. They want to take their money and invest in that community. I think that that retains value, that has this Americana nostalgia that I think a lot of the country is losing.
It's going to sound corny, but people want someone that cares. Someone that values craftsmanship. I know we keep using that word.
Which people? The people who always pick the low bid?
No. There's not one person that I'm talking to that takes a low bid. There's not one person that knocks on my door, that text messages me, that DMs me, any of those people that are looking for the low bid.
But you understand how rare you are?
No, I don't.
You
And I don't think of it that way. I want to spread that as far and as deep as I can.
We'll spread that confidence,
Until I
right?
disappear.
To have that, right? To have people strive to get to that level and
Yeah.
not just fall in line and be the mundane.
Where was I 2 years ago? Where was I 5 years ago? It's the fact what I came up doing doesn't exist anymore, and it worries me. To say that the nothing's taking over in that kind of corny old school movie that no one even knows about that's probably listening to this, it's I'm worried that I'm going to drive around more and be more disappointed with the architecture that's getting built. And the only way I'm going to see it is if I drive and walk those neighborhoods that are the 1%ers.
But what if, like, I often do the same thing, not necessarily in this perspective, but like trying to control what's within your control with what you're doing and what you're putting out.
Define my control.
Your jobs.
We have this, though.
Yeah, but
what
what
I'm looking at right now.
Yeah, but like what you also have everything that you put out and everything
Yeah.
that you see and that your kids see and that the people are wanting to come work for you, like actions oftentimes do speak louder than words. And what you're building, if that is significant of who you are and what's important to you, your morals, your ethos, everything else, like you could build a house and not say a word.
Yeah.
And you'd be saying just as much as like you trying to articulate what you want to build. Because even if you don't know, if you look at John's house versus a house that I like, a new house down near me, somebody that has no idea anything about that is going to see your house looks different, you know? And like you're already doing that. So to spend so much of your time and so much of your life worrying about stuff that's completely outside of your control, like it's wasted energy. Put that somewhere else, because we're not going to change that by like talking about that. How you're going to change that is by continuing to do what you're doing.
Why not do both?
But
You are. But like to sit there and dwell on that aspect of it is wasted energy. Don't dwell on that aspect of it. Like let your work speak for itself, and this can, coincide with that, but you don't need to focus on that this is potentially going to be, because it's going to happen whether you do it or not.
The odds are against us.
I know, but where you have control is by building the house that you think represents what we should be building.
I think the
Agreed.
one thing that, hearing everything, I think the one thing that we're missing is that we're not looking to eliminate the people that are looking for the low bid, but we're also not looking to just focus on our 1%. It's the fact that the people looking for the low bid and the people that are paying that that are in that 1% are becoming further and further apart, and that low bid market is growing. And like I always compare it to coattails. You know, I'm chasing someone in front of me, and when I'm chasing him, I'm giving all of what I can learn, what I learned, mistakes and everything else, passed down behind me, because the guy that is where I was building decks 2.5 years ago myself. And the guy that's building decks now, it's like I'm passing what I know and what I've learned and the steps I've taken, and really taking the market from that low bid to the high end market, and having this coattail of guys that here's your selection. Now you get to select anywhere along that line, rather than this giant market just growing, very parallel rather than up the scale.
You know what I think
But you've got to, in the process, I would say, Nick, I mean, I agree but in the process, you have to make sure that the thinking doesn't get clouded by the romantic notion that's complete bull, right? Because we can
Why do
easily.
you look right at me?
No, I was just making eye contact all around the room.
Why was that?
All around the room.
No, you didn't. You looked right at me.
I know.
You stalled out with
I
me.
went right
Very
from
robotic,
Doug.
right?
Just
Wasn't it just like?
Listen, let me pitch you a project right now. Let me pitch you a project. I want you to build this. This is my pitch. All right, I got this little plot of land out in the burbs outside of the city.
Can we bet on it?
I'm 11 minutes away.
I'm gonna
I only do jobs 11 minutes from my house.
I'm gonna pick up 10 blocks at a time, and I'm gonna develop these houses in a row. And every fourth house, I'm gonna do style A, B, C, and D, and then repeat A, B, C, D.
No.
Run it down. And every fourth one is going to be identical to the next. And I'm going to build them on spec. You in or out?
No.
You just passed on Brooklyn.
No, I get it, and it's fine.
Brownstones. Magic.
Yeah.
They love them.
Yeah.
The entire place was built on spec. The formula was put them up. And everyone shit on them, and they were just like, oh, my God, what's going on out there? They're beautiful. We love them. They're iconic. You get lost in the romanticism because to you, your immediate reaction is, that's garbage.
No.
I'm not doing repetitive. I'm not
doing
doing development. I'm not doing.
The definition of it is what is been is that's not the
What's
norm.
wrong with Brooklyn?
No, that's not the norm though.
What's wrong with Brooklyn?
Okay, hold on.
What is
Slow it
wrong
down.
with Brooklyn?
Slow it down.
What's wrong with Brooklyn?
Pump the brakes.
Haven't been.
I don't
hey,
never
speak
been.
poorly of Brooklyn.
But hey, would anybody that you just said that to that listens to this, would Brooklyn have come to mind? No.
I
because
didn't
your
think
head is
Brooklyn-
clouded with the romantic notion
my head-
that if it is built by a developer, it's bad. If it is built on spec, it's bad. If it is built in a repeatable fashion, it's bad. That's the romantic notion. And I'm telling you,
No, in my
if
head, hold
Pulte
on.
builds a
red
house,
red light. My point is that in my head, when you were saying that, was you could have a Pulte home, or you could have like what's happening at.
He tricked you, didn't he?
He didn't turn.
He tricked
I was like,
Should we go back?
walk
live?
right
No,
into
because
it.
I'm looking-
I've used that gag like a million times. You're
but-
just not listening to my feeds, dude.
look at
He hasn't seen. Has he seen your truck?
No, I don't think so.
Does he watch the
It's
show?
blocking his Toyota right now.
Does he watch the show?
My American
Well,
K5
how- do you-
Blazers
all right,
blocking
here.
his Toyota.
I
Do you
feel
think
like
that
Your
same
initial
development? But do you think that same development would be Brooklyn Brownstone esque had it been done?
I was
today?
when he was speaking, I was like, he's talking Pulte, and I'm hoping he's gonna go Jason Black, and say, hey, they're gonna be similar styles, but you get to pick from 5 different exteriors or some sort of detail, because you could do Pine Hills, okay, you could do that.
It's real nice.
You could burn the whole thing down to the ground, and then you could also go what Jason did in Kentucky. And that development is through the roof and how it should be. You could even go back to Medfield, where they did a small development over 4 acres, and they did mimic additional designs, but they changed up the details and materials.
I don't know who Jason Black is, but could anybody who was working for the big man's house in the city afford Jason Black's house out in the burbs? Because that's who bought Brooklyn, and that's why they're built that way. Because there's 100,000 rich people living in Manhattan at the time, and there was 300,000 people working in all their houses, and they needed a place to live. So they built them places where they could live, and it worked. And there's nothing wrong with that because they needed a place to live. All of a sudden, I become like the guy who's defending spec housing and multi-developments. And I just, for the record, anyone was listening, this old house is not endorsed. No, but my point is that I'm just arguing that it's so easy to get hung up and cloud this argument with all these things that are just really romantic and BS. New stuff is good, can be good. Some of it's bad. Spec housing is not the enemy. That's not the enemy here. When I'm talking about aero barrier, which you guys went to at the builder show, right?
Yeah.
They're going to seal the entire house using that equipment. And you were saying, oh, should I buy a trailer? You guys want to go in? It's amazing technology. It comes out of the national labs. They can actually pump it into a house at 4 or 5 different stages, and they can bring that thing down to 1 ACH.
My question to
The
you
biggest company looking at that technology? Pulte, Toll Brothers, spec guys. Biggest. Not you. Not you, them. They're the ones who are going to hire that truck and bring them to a job site, and they're going to pump it into 60 homes, and they're going to turn it to
fiberglass
ACH.
insulation, and this is their way to get around.
What's wrong?
They've done the
What
math
is
on it.
wrong? You
They've
guys
done
are
the
going to
math.
use spray foam that's open cell, that's an R3 per inch, which is the same thing as fiberglass. And the one Achilles heel, the fiberglass, is that air infiltrates it. But if some guy came up with a way to stop the air infiltration, and it was a magic glue that got sprayed into it and allowed you to go back to fiberglass at the cost per square foot, and you got the same R value but a 1 ACH, you're better off. And there's nothing evil about it because it's different or new. It's actually better. And it's nothing evil about it because Pulte uses it, and it's more efficient.
So that means you're putting more detail in the house with the money you save.
Depends what the customer wants. You can.
Are they being built for a final product customer, or are they just being built for a bottom line?
I don't know what the difference is.
It's for a bottom line. There's no customer in mind.
It's spec.
Yeah, so it's basically built on your X amount of dollars you can make per square foot, not about the actual product.
4% of the homes in this country are built
Agreed.
with an architect involved. That means 96% of the homes in this country are built without an architect involved. That's the reality. The vast majority, 90+%, even higher, in this country buy someone else's home.
What happened to
Whose
this
home
industry?
did you buy? The one you made, or someone else's?
I'd go back to
I
a
bought someone
Sears-built
else's
kit.
home. Everybody buys someone else's home. 1, 2, 3, maybe 4% builds their own house. Everyone else buys someone else's home. So if you're telling me it's evil that somebody would build a house for a customer they didn't know, you've just shit on 95% of the market out there.
Yeah,
because
that's
95% of the market bought someone else's home.
That's accurate.
Get out of the romantic notion and focus
You're never
on
going to get me to do that.
I know I'm not.
I think we're one recession and one big issue away from losing anything that's actual craftsmanship. Because no one's educating anything. It's not our kids that are in elementary school aren't being exposed to this industry. So it's only getting lower and lower. And yeah,
I'm not denying, Johnny.
You know what I
Johnny, I'm
should
not
do?
denying that it's a
You know what
problem.
I should do?
just want to make sure that people
You know what I
focus
should
on
do?
the
I should
right solution.
I should follow you and let it all just die away and just put my mic away. Because you know what? I'd probably get most of my days back. I wouldn't be as stressed out, and I wouldn't be worried about all the details because I could get away with sin. Because none of the stuff that I value would even matter in your scenario.
Are the engineers who invented zip wall evil?
No, you're missing my point.
Are they bad?
I'm not saying
Are they bad because a couple
we're-
of guys who were not in the
you're
field?
talking technology. I'm talking craftsmanship and how you blend the two. Okay? You can't just put AeroBear in and get rid of closed cell foam and save the buck on fiberglass and then still put everything else everywhere else.
You're making the presumption that everything that comes after that.
Show
Just-
me the difference. Show me all your stats. Give me the examples that show that guys are putting this in. That what they save, they're going to put into different details, or they're just getting the cookie cutter spec regardless. That they're only doing that to meet a code to save a buck, and that's it. 'Cause that way they can do it a different way. It's all about numbers. It's all about your shareholders.
But I don't think that's I don't think that's the argument. That's the way that business is built. They build a massive amount of homes, and they're looking at new technology to save them more money so they can make more money and build more homes. I mean, they're not doing it because they're trying to bring craftsmen back. They're doing it because they want to make money. That's the way that business is developed. We're not
That's
we're
how
not
the world
Pulte.
is working.
Right, but it's just that separation. It's we're not. I mean, I don't feel as though I need to change because they're building a product like that I'm like, oh, you know what? Maybe I should just go back to building regular ass.
Ted Benson from Benson Homes, Benson Wood, wants to change the world. He builds some of the best houses I've ever seen. Super high quality, completely energy efficient, smartest, most advanced thinking in terms of home construction that I've ever been exposed to. And he could have stopped at building that type of house. But he realized that the only way that he was going to change the equation in this country was to build that house at a price point that people could afford, to deliver the efficiency and the aesthetic that you're used to building at a much higher level and deliver it on a square foot price basis that's comparable to what was out there.
But what's his background and what's his inspiration, right? Where did he get to that point that he could blend the two of craftsmanship and then this production quality level?
So he
right?
grows.
Where did he come?
He grows up in it just like you guys. He decides one day that he wants to build houses. He's never done it before, so he starts going around and he starts taking down old timber frames just so he could figure out how they're built.
How they used to do it.
Yeah, and he writes a book, and he grows, and he evolves. He's always wanted to change the equation. But what the point that I'm getting to right here is that once he figured it out, he realized that he had to not just figure it out, but then he had to make it affordable and attainable by enough people that it mattered. If you find a client who loves craftsmanship and all of the knowledge that you've got, and you talk to 2 clients or 20 clients, you've missed 20 million clients. And my point is that what he's trying to do is to hang on to all of those things, craftsmanship, beautiful homes, efficiency, but he also realizes that they have to be at a price point that people can afford them, that it will spread, and that they'll buy them, because most people aren't as passionate about the house like you are, but they're price sensitive. So he doesn't stop. He doesn't stop on his goal. He doesn't say, I'm going to get rid of the craftsmanship. He just starts to figure out where the waste is. This is the story I was telling you before. Yeah. Should I have a carpenter hog out the mortises, or should I have a machine do it? Well, you know what? The mortises, God, it's an old world tradition. Has been going on for 3,000 years. It's the thing that houses were built by for 3,000 years until balloon framing started in the 1900s. Does he sit there and hold on to that so tightly? You know, he says, no. I can get rid of that, because if I get rid of that and let a machine do it, I can put the resources into something else. And I can build an exterior skin that's completely uninterrupted by the framing. And I can get no thermal bridging. I can get a higher arbor.
Did you call him crazy too, or no?
No, I called him a genius, because he took all this stuff and he killed his sacred cows.
Did you ask him what his
I asked him a million times.
What his impact is on the overall industry against Pulte?
Yeah.
Did you do the same thing he did to us?
Yes.
And what was his answer?
He said, I'm going to create a program. All of my electronics, all of my computer programs is going to be open source, and I'm going to give it away so everybody can take this and replicate it.
How many people have taken it?
Thousands. And he just opened up a 240,000 square foot facility where now, instead of just making homes, he's just going to make your wall panel for you so that you can buy a wall from him. Just the wall. It's going to be packed solid with dense pack cellulose. It's going to be a passive house standard, and it's not going to cost you any more to get the wall from him delivered than it would for you to do it on site stick.
So
he wants to change the world by giving the customer what they want, figuring out where the craftsmanship has to stay.
It's crazy. I walked his house 15 years ago, and it was in the New York Times. It was.
He's never given up on the craftsmanship.
And
he's never given up on the craftsmanship.
He made a tiny dent then when Passive House was a joke, and he's still killing it.
Go.
I think it's interesting because I know a little about him. Obviously not as much as you just rattled off, but the fact that there was such a heavy focus to, all right, let's keep the craftsmanship where it makes sense and source like the Mortise tenon with a CNC, right? But with his focus saying, hey, I want to build beautiful, high performance homes with the level of craftsmanship that everyone wants, but I also want to do it for people that previously couldn't afford it. And I think, like, specifically to my market, it's like I've never looked at it that way, where it's like, all right, we are high end, we are expensive, we spend a lot of time on site, it takes a lot of time for execution, so we put a lot of man hours into it, and some of those man hours are man hours that we don't want to spend, and the guys don't enjoy. And to look at it from that side of things, like saying, well, all right, what if I narrow my focus and look at each system and what doesn't, where we're wasting our time, and say that we could do that job for 20% less, but still make the same money and still produce the same product. And what he's obviously figured out is how to do that. And I think, and I'm just kind of brain dumping here, but that's just so interesting to me that you think that if he can cut costs, then he's cutting corners, but in reality he's not. He's eliminating waste, and he's and whether that's material or time.
He eliminates the guy who's got to hog out the mortise from 800 years ago, just like Zip has eliminated the guy who's got to tape Tyvek around the house. Is it something that's lost? Yes. Is it a crime? Is it bad? I don't think so. If somebody's figured out how to integrate that step into the sheathing,
You become more efficient.
you become more efficient, and you end up getting a better product to the customer because it's got a lower failure rate, because it's easier to execute. And guys can go up the food chain and spend their time and their resources and their knowledge solving tougher problems than making the house airtight with a piece of plastic that they've got to wrap, staple, and tape when it's embedded into the sheathing. If you can take 4 steps and reduce it to 2, and in the process get a better product, then the resources can go to other places, and you might get your flared shingle detail back. Just like Ted Benson
I'm
can
not
now all of
arguing
a
with
sudden deliver to people a passive house style level. Just for anyone who's listening, it doesn't get it. Less than 1 air change per hour. Someone can get a house that's efficient, that is that efficient, at a market rate. That's insane. All of a sudden, they're not buying a big heating and cooling system. They're putting 1 mini split on each floor, and they're done. Or they got 1 3-kilowatt panel of solar on the roof, and it's sufficient because he's made the house.
Basically, your house heats and cools by the motors in your refrigerator and all that stuff, and the solar heat gain. It is, most people that listen to this will understand the Energy Star ratings for houses is 1, 2, and 3. This is the elite level. This is what we should be building to, and the fact that he was able to do that, I'm jealous of that. That's where I'd want to be in 15 years. Is to be able to come up with how I've been able to do the architectural significant houses that are spec for the $250 a square foot that can then be reproduced all over the U.S. and come up with a formula for people to do that. Right now I can't, and right now it's through this microphone and through my IG stories that I hope to inspire people to look a little deeper for the details. So if they find a way to be more efficient with close-up foam, cellulose, and zip, or whatever it is that can do that, whether it's going from a different type of window to a Marvin Integrity. I don't know what it is that their formula needs to happen so they can focus a little bit more on, or even it's just efficiencies with management, that they can then focus on not putting out fires like the post we put up today on the Modern Craftsman, and they can look into where they align plugs with the windows so they can hang Christmas lights. More of the creative part of the business and not just about straight line, money, hitting dates, and going. That I guess that we've gone back and forth, and we've gotten riled up, and we've cooled down here and there. But yeah,
And by we, I mean you and Kevin.
It's a small couch. If you guys,
It's a love
if
seat.
you guys
I mean,
didn't, yeah, it's a love seat. It
What
causes a lot
my
of-
takeaway from all this would be, the 3 of us are pitching craftsmanship pretty hard. That's like, for me, if I want to speak just for myself, quality's at like the forefront of everything that I do. And my approach to trying to help the industry turn around would be that. And there is the romantic side of it. But I think what Kevin's shedding light on is that there's other routes to turning the industry around and getting kids involved with this. And it doesn't necessarily need to be through an elite level or a high-end carpentry level. That, like, there's other options out there to bring kids into the trades, and it could be a Pulte, and that's not right nor wrong. And maybe kids getting involved in the industry through Pulte does turn the industry around, because now there's more kids, and maybe it's not the level of craft that we want, but it still is the trades. You know, it's still kids building something with their hands, and maybe it's not what the high-end client wants. Maybe it's something that somebody can afford for their family, but at the same time, it's bringing kids into the trades, whether it's what we see as the trades for our own vision, like what I want out of the trades may not be what this kid wants working for a spec builder or a production builder. But that's their vision, that's their path, but maybe it still does get kids in the trades.
No, I mean, I'm obviously, it's been proven I'm at cuckoo land on this whole thing, but I would rather go to Pulte's area where they're developing and have the opportunity to build my house for the same cost per square foot, using some of the techniques that we're talking about with the stuff that I've used for strategies, but with those details, so then that market knows what that value can really bring. And I know I'm doing it in a small box in Wellesley, that when people walk through the house, and this is not bragging, it's not anything, it's just, it's a different level that anyone's seen. And I've had people that have bought my first spec that you guys walked today, that I know that there's, you know, fixes and corrections and improvements that need to be made, but they've walked through every open house for the last 4 months, all the way up to 4 million, and they don't see the craftsmanship. And they would never have seen that unless I enlightened them in their first walkthrough. And I want to connect more one-on-one with those types of people that just don't know what they're looking at. And I feel like that is the majority of the market, your 98% stat. And yeah, it's romantic, and I'm cool with putting that on my gravestone. I just feel like that's it's just going to die off if more of craftsmen that are out there right now don't speak up with whatever voice they have, whether it's a podcast, an IG, their website.
And I
whatever.
think that is important, but I mean, it's also sheer numbers by let's get kids involved in the trades and then let them learn. Because when Matt Reisinger started, it's production, and then he wanted something more out of it. You know, whatever he made the next step, you know, he's not still doing production builds, but maybe we get more kids into production building, and then they see, hey, these details do matter, or hey, I just learned more, or hey, I looked at John's house and I saw this, why aren't we doing that on our builds? And starts questioning what they're doing, why they're doing it. Maybe there is a bottom line there, maybe it is more so about profit, and then makes a decision to stay within the trades but make a better house or make a more traditionally designed house. And at the end of the day, I think that our goal should be getting people involved, and it doesn't necessarily need to be into what we believe to be the industry, like what's right.
So what gets them involved? Is it craftsmanship? Is it
I
money?
mean, as Kevin and I had Kevin and I had the conversation where, like, it needs to be a bigger company to have specific training in place. You know, there's not, like, I don't have a training system for Steve. We're flying by the seat of our pants. Benefits being offered. And these bigger companies they can compete with the entry-level job coming out of a college education. So, like, maybe they still require that. Or maybe there's feeder programs where it's like, hey, you can start out as an assistant project manager with a Voc school, like, you know, graduating from a Voc school, and get their foot in the door, and they save the cost from college. And maybe they're not making as much as somebody who's coming out of college and getting an entry-level job, but they are saving the 4 years worth of tuition, and they're getting the foot in the door, and they're getting the training that they need, and they're getting taught. And then the more that they learn, the more that they realize they want to move on to something that's more important to them, more valuable to them. They want to be building something that's better, that's more efficient, that's more, whatever it may be. But, like, by sheer numbers, the more kids we get involved, the more they're going to leave, but the more we're going to stay, and the more we're going to work up.
What's the reference point? When they're already in that system, that's all they know. That's their pocket of this industry. How do they know anything else exists?
It's only going to be the kids who question everything. You question everything, right?
They're not robots.
You question everything.
What do you mean?
Nick questions everything.
Yeah.
Like, none of us are content with the status quo. So we bring 100 kids in versus 5 kids in. that 100's going to bring us more of the kids who question everything. How can I make it better than the 5? Just by sheer numbers.
And they're
you
going
know
to,
what I mean?
and they're going to be exposed. You can't. I mean, what do you think? Pulte's got
We're
him
going to have
behind
more
bar.
of an opportunity with that
Right, I mean, we have
than the kids who
attention.
don't get any sort of construction knowledge in the first place.
They're smarter than us. They're more
So
wired
you-
than us. They're
so
more
we're going back to the point that
they're more
what
plugged
we're
in
doing
than
on
us.
IG will make an impact.
Totally.
And it's not
100%.
romantic.
100%.
That's not even being
But
argued. It's,
not
it's
even.
the
maybe it's
fact
not
that
the impact on the bigger scale. Like maybe it's just getting the numbers in the first place. Even like he said, the unions and stuff like that. Like maybe we don't agree to the approach of a union, but I do know a lot of people who went into the union and then wanted to do something different
Sure.
or wanted to work harder.
we have the attention of thousands of people, and that will only grow through different media outlets. We have that attention.
But
We
all
don't
say
have the,
this because this has only been created while we've been on the up and up.
Sure,
This hasn't going
But
back
that-
to the rising tide.
but
And-
say Instagram dies, it shuts down tomorrow.
Well, what
You're
happened-
talking about the economy.
Yeah, like what happened last time when everyone left this industry.
Everyone left.
Everyone booted,
Millions. You guys lost millions in your industry.
and it's gonna happen again when we're trying to get everyone to come in at the tail end of this rise.
Yeah, but it's not just us.
No,
it's
I'm not saying it's just us.
Yeah.
I'm just saying I want to be accountable for what I'm talking about. That if we're going to get people to come on board, and like Kevin and I talked about when I saw him, was that people have said, hey, I left my desk job to get into this. It scares the shit out of me. You can bleep that out.
But the people who are leaving their desk job to get into this, they're
There's a
the
ton of
romantic
bleeps.
type.
no, I get you.
They're not no
But Kevin's making me feel bad about that now.
no,
And-
but like
and I'm-
a lot of
Just
people
because I'm
like,
sharing a love
the
seat with
people
you, and I
who
don't need to be
were-
next to the romantic guy.
the
If I'm going to
people
share a
who-
love seat, I'd like to be next to the robot. It's not going to do anything.
I'm sure there's an exception to this, but most people who do DM you, who are going to leave their desk job or leave becoming a teacher that they went to school with, are not like, hey, I want to go work for Toll Brothers. I want to put up production housing. I want to leave everything. No, like they're chasing that dream and they're seeing the details and the romantic side. Like we glamorize what we're doing. What you do every day, it's a pain in the ass. You're dealing with, like you say, like clowns. Like you're begging people to show up. You're trying to put bodies in place. You're putting out fires. We glamorize all of this. It's not as cool as Nick makes it look. It's not. Like it's the fact of the
I
matter.
do a really good
Like
job.
I had somebody quit on me because they said it was harder than it looked.
Save did I. So did
You
I.
know? So like the people who are leaving the jobs are seeing that and they're latching onto that. And like
But I feel like that's the majority of the world is lazier and doesn't want to have this. I just feel like I don't want to give up on the romantic end of it because once I do, it's not me that's holding on to the whole thing. But it's like
You're
we'll
not going
lose
to give
touch.
up on it.
No, I know, but it's
But you
just,
also can't be.
I know it's an uphill battle.
You just because you're telling someone to get in the trade and then the economy crashes and something happens, you're not accountable for that.
No, I get you, but I guess what I'm saying is, like you were saying, who cares about that flair? You know how many spec guys I talk to in town that they go, what do you have? I go, I do closed cell foam. You'll never get paid for that. No, I'm cool with that. I get that, but that creates the comfort level. So when they move in after a year, they not only feel the details, but they not only do they understand the details, but they feel the comfort level. And then every other spec that gets built that gets a HERS rating of 69 just because it's below code, people resell that house sooner. That's branding and that's word of mouth that's almost dead. We talked about, is IG the only way to market yourself? And I've talked that, no, I want to go back to doing a little bit of print, and I want to sponsor hockey teams. I want to put my logo on the boards. I just did a golf tournament in Wellesley and sponsored the whole. I want to go back to old school roots where I'm part of the community.
but you don't realize that you already are. And
No.
you're doing everything right and you're doing everything that you need to, and we can talk about it as much as possible, but you're living it. And that's like, after that, like we're all doing as much as we can to promote that, but like what you're putting forth and your legacy that you're leaving and the houses that you're building and the ones that are reselling, like that's more than you can do throughout any other platform. Like, this is good, and the Kukin Brothers speech is going to be good, and connecting with a lot of people is good. But you building the houses and maintaining that standard because that's what you believe in, like, nobody can touch that.
No, I get it, but my 4 houses, Kevin, I know aren't going to change the stats.
Because you're too small.
I know, and I don't want to grow more than that.
That's fine.
Because I know my quality will be impacted, and then I become one of the big bears. And then
Tell Ted Benson that.
no, hey,
He's
I'm
big and he's not
totally-
a bad bear.
How long has he been in the business? I have a ways to go.
But
I'm
don't
not saying I'm Benson.
No, but I'm just saying, like, don't. My point of the comment is, don't crap on big. Just say I'm not there yet, but I will,
I'm
or
not
something.
going to use one example.
But I'm
to
just
knock
saying.
out the 10 examples that I have in my head.
No, but big isn't necessarily bad. Big doesn't make you production. Big doesn't make you sloppy. Big doesn't make you bottom line. I mean, how big is Reisinger? I know guys that he worked with out there in Austin, who are big, and they've never
We have
sacrificed
to
quality.
get to a point where they're not the exception.
Well, that's something that's going to be driven by the consumer, not by you.
I'm with you.
But that doesn't
How do you
mean.
reach the
But that
consumer?
doesn't mean that you can't grow. That doesn't mean that you can't change. And my point is that if you're trying to figure out the path, you got to make sure that you're not looking at bad directions. You got to make sure that the map you're looking at isn't confused with bad information. And when I hear things like big is bad, spec is bad, all this stuff is bad, I say, you know what? It's way too broad of a brush. It's not a good map. You're not looking at the topography. You're going to get lost. When I hear all the romantic notions that are thrown out and all this sort of, God, if people just respected us more. And I'm thinking to myself, well, you're a 2-man operation. You're up against the guy who that homeowner called last week and they never called them back. That's what they're comparing you to. So I'm just saying, if your map is flawed because some of the information is flawed, you're going to get lost. So refine the map. Make sure that you get the nonsense and the romance out. Don't beg for 1x8. Embrace the zip. Bad. I know I'm coming back at you hard on it. You do embrace the zip. But make sure that you get the map and the information accurate so you see the pathway forward. And I want to keep coming back to Ted, but like for him to give up the guy who made the mortise and tenon and the timber frame when he said, I'm going to get rid of the guy who's half of the equation for the thing that's been around for 3,000 years, but then he realized, wait a second, that's not the important part.
It's the same as Nick giving up the dovetails and ordering draw boxes.
I never did them.
I know, but that's my point is that
Right.
that used to be the value in creating that is you sub that out for more efficient practices.
Mm-hmm.
And the bottom line is if you save that
Same thing.
time, you might line the inside of your cabinet with walnut.
Same thing.
I had a kid DM me earlier. He texted me and he said, "Can I get your opinion on something?" And he had subbed a job out to another local contractor because he didn't have the time to do it. He's like, "I don't know how to promote the fact that I did this." I said, "Why?" He said, "Well, someone else, like this guy, did it, and I want to give him the credit, but I'm fearful that the client's gonna look at that differently." I'm like, "The client hired you for your execution.
Yeah. And
Just because you partnered with someone to
Right.
help you do it, you managed it." So I would say, "Hey, I partnered with John,
right.
and we banged out this new front deck, and that's it." And he's like, "I didn't even think that." Like, it's just they're hiring you because they believe in what you stand for, regardless of how you accomplish it. It's up to you to accomplish it the best way you see fit, and then your reputation is built on that.
You
the
have
fact that you can build a house with closed cell and it's comfortable. The fact that the main reason I don't have percentages, but the main reason people
I just make them
You
up.
can make them up. I
You
was just
just
going to
make
say
'em up.
you beat me to it.
93.5% of people.
Yeah, don't do half. That
Oh,
tips
damn.
you off.
Yeah,
But don't do
that's-
90 either. Do 93 is good. 93.5 is a bit much.
No even
Most
numbers.
people sell their home
No whole numbers.
because it's uncomfortable. And it's a subconscious decision. It's not, "Oh, this house doesn't heat well, I'm going to sell." It's, "I just don't like the house anymore, I'm going to sell the home." But someone lives in the home for 10 years, 11 years, 12 years, and people come and they love the home and they're happy and they're genuinely in the home because they love it. Then it's, who built the house? Oh, Vintage built it. And that's where that pays off, is that craftsmanship and that execution.
I guess I'm not worried about my story as
You shouldn't be.
much as how much I feel like I'm under fire for valuing the wrong things and questioning the wrong types of companies out of this conversation.
I don't think. I don't think you're under.
I don't think your
because
values
I
are
mean,
off at
nobody
all. I think your
agrees
values
with you
are
more.
Well,
I
when
agree
you
with
say
you 100%.
lose the romantic part of it, that is my value.
Not
it's
necessarily.
not. I don't think it is.
I
think your value is quality.
And like
Okay.
I also don't think that.
Which
it's
is why
it's losing your romantic drive.
I feel like I'm gonna walk away right now, and I should be focusing on something else.
No, because
Instead of
I
being
don't
where
think
right?
it's as much as
Am I the
your
wrong one?
as much as your
I'm an idiot,
as much as
so
your
I
vision.
feel like I'm not confused.
No, it's not as much as your vision as like from your business approach. Like
cold.
to spend money.
He's telling me I need to
doing-
lose. I need to like reevaluate, and I'm like,
I feel like he means it from like your romantic vision.
He's
more
here. He's
so
got a
than
mic.
Than your
Why don't you
business.
jump
than
in here,
your
boss?
business approach. You know what I mean? Like to approach a job or
How did
execute
I
a job
fire?
just because
It hurts,
we used
doesn't
to do it
I'm cool.
this way in the past.
Right.
Like
Right.
like the 1x8. No, there's no reason to do that. Use zip. And like the quality is higher at that point, and like your romantic vision can be thrown out the window and you're executing with quality. And like where that romanticism needs to come in, it'll still come in. Like the water table or the flare, that's completely irrelevant because you have gutters on the house. You now save money not using 1x8 and use zip instead, and you can actually put that into the bill.
I'm with you. I don't know. I'm just really confused.
I just don't want you charging up the wrong hill.
I charge up at the wrong hill. I'll just run down the other side and just charge up another one. But I guess my thing is like the house you guys walk today. I grew up cutting out angle braces and all that stuff and understood not from a calculation point of view on why that was necessary, except for my old boss told me why that angle brace was necessary because of shear and all that stuff. I know that, and then I can now look at a design and go, I won't have shear. Not based on any calculations and that stuff, and that's based on the old 1x. And those kids aren't getting any of the Mech 190s, you know, that's the class we had in college for mechanical engineering on what the shears are and all that. If there's none of that in place, none of that common sense is there in the industry that, you know, Sweeney, you know, all these different people have that we respect, that this next round of the recessional correction, and I feel like the recession happens and everyone kind of just totally scatters, and then the trade shows slow down. And then what happens is the bigger companies want to slow down and not be at trade shows. So then it gives these opportunities for all these other products to then saturate the market. And then now we're at a deeper deficit for trying to show value in what we want. And then that 1% that we were trying to hold on to turns into 0.3%. And yeah, I don't know if I'm
But
crazy.
who's going to survive that recession? Is it going to be the person who's building crappy houses?
No,
or
but
the,
what are
like,
you going to concede in your build to stay alive? If it's going to mean staying on hold to Steve, or is it going to mean compromising instead of going weedy, and you go back to something that wasn't perfect, that was up to your ethos, and that's at your level, and you're up here between us, forget the people that are listening, the people that are all at that other levels, what are they going to sacrifice to stay on to stay running? And then what happens to the overall? And will we recover to even value any of the same stuff we're talking about now in 10 years?
Yeah, because I think that the people who are going to sustain at that point are going to be the people who do have their morals in check, and their vision in check. And I think that will trickle down again. Like, it's natural selection, and maybe those people who are like dwelling at the bottom, just getting by with the bare minimum, they're gone. And then it's a slow transition back up, but like the people who are going to fight through that, and maybe I do have to sacrifice in order to keep Steve on board, but like I'm not going to sacrifice where it's going to count. And like maybe I wouldn't be able to do things to the level I needed to, or I wanted
But the only
to.
reason why you hold on to Steve is because you have values. If you were for the bottom line, which somehow has been tossed into the big companies, and it's just the bottom line, then Steve isn't an actual person. He's a number. And you have to let him go, and you're also going to then make the sacrifices on the products to make your bottom line work. I just don't know how it's all going to shake out. And if you bring all these people in that we're talking about to say, hey, take a year off from school and get into this business, and there's no place for them to get educated because the Voc schools have a huge backup, and there's none of these other areas to go, and a lot of the small businesses that are 5% of the overall, 95% of the overall market, if I'm going with these stats, can't do it. What are we doing then? What's the answer? To go back to the way back question, what are we doing? What's the purpose behind us talking into these mics if we're not going to change? I talked to a bunch of kids in an elementary school the other day that I could not get over. I thought I was going to connect with 3 kids out of 24. And it was all 24. I turned around, put my boards up, and the teacher said, anyone that wants to move to the floor, the carpet can move to the floor. I turned around, and it was a small army at my feet. I thought it'd be like 3 kids. People want to build. And those kids aren't going to get that education unless they're like the top 4% that can afford college, that can afford XYZ, to afford the real stuff. What about the rest of us that, I mean, I went to college, so did you guys. It wasn't my plan. And I only learned really what I learned was from my 63-year-old boss that I value today.
I think those people will be here, and maybe it's fewer and far between, but that's just more incentive and more motivation for you to continue to take the path that you are. And
or do we turn into, Nick, the top 1% that go to the bad talks, that are like the Ken Vaughners, the Payne Bouchers, and all those guys that just talk amongst themselves?
No.
Like, is that what's going to happen?
No.
Like, we go to those meetings, and it's like, how do we excel ourselves? And there's no thought of us in the room, the 30-somethings that are in the room. And we're trying to think of the kid. I'm really trying to think personally about the kids in elementary school that will. I almost brought a jar of sawdust to pass around the room so these kids are exposed to it, so that maybe they smell it. Like, to tell the kids that are there, one of the kids I'm building their house for, that you get to walk through walls, that you're Superman. There's no kids in that school that say they get to walk through walls. And yeah, it's romantic, and I think that if they want to get involved in that end of it, but what I'm coming up with is the short end of the stick is, how do we really educate them? And I don't know how to do that yet.
Listen, I am so taken by the passion and what you talk about and the ability to get kids to crawl down on the floor.
But there's no follow-through. I get it.
No, it's not that there's no follow-through. My point is that part of it is passion, but there's also part of it where it's a new world. You guys are up against a lot of competition.
No, I get it.
There are businesses out there that are providing opportunity to all of these people who you want to come into your business. But at the same time, I don't think the American house has ever been more interesting. I mean, you got to understand, if you look at the evolution of this thing, they did it the same way for hundreds of years. And in the short span of 40, everything has changed. And we may say that that's bad, but I actually look at it and I say that's good. A lot of the learning that's going on, a lot of that knowledge transfer is happening at companies that make materials, no longer on the job site, where it took generations after generations to pass the knowledge on, and that was the only way to get it. The mud job, the shower pan replaced by a piece of fabric, bad or good? I mean, an engineer took all of the information that had been accumulated on how to keep that thing dry and pitched, and he put it into a piece of fabric and a piece of foam so that you dudes could get onto the next thing. And I don't think that's a terrible thing. I think it's actually a fascinating thing. And I think it introduced...
Shower pans sore subject.
Well, I also think it's the fact that there's less guys that are able to do it.
No,
right? So then
But
they
you know what?
they
There's
had
less
to force
guys. There's less guys who know how to work on a carburetor, which is the first thing I
Agreed.
learned when I got my new
I know.
car. I was like, "Holy mackerel, a carburetor!" I remember these things. Look, one of these things is for oxygen. One of these things is for gas. But I've never had to work on a carburetor for the last 25 years because I've got a car that doesn't have one, and it doesn't bother me. I like it better. My wife doesn't call me from the side of the road, and the thing doesn't, crap out on me when I'm on Block Island driving around. I love getting under the hood and messing with it when I had a couple beers and I called
as a
them
hobby.
as a hobby.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I expect the other thing day to day.
You know how many people take our career as a hobby? You don't have that stat? I thought you had stats. Because I think a lot of
17%.
our industry is a hobby to a lot of people.
Mhm.
They do it in their garage. They do it on weekends. They love watching on TV where it doesn't make any sense. But we do it for a living. And what we do and spend endless hours, and clients spend tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars to make the real photos that inspire all the DIYers. I think we got to come up with a school that really educates. I look at the big picture like, yeah, you can say trusses are a huge time saver. I think they were created as a necessity because less and less people know how to cut a roof. I think certain things,
Fewer and fewer people.
yeah, whatever you want to say. I didn't excel in English. That's simple. I don't write blogs.
John, I think if we had the answer as to how we fix this,
We do. We just don't have the time to put into it.
we don't
or
have
the
the
effort
answer.
or the money
I mean, it's something
to
that
really solve.
everyone is working on.
I think you're all doing way more than you know. I really do. And
Agreed, and that's what I'm
and-
getting at, is that having these conversations and talking about this and working it through and getting John riled up that's how we're educating,
But
and that's how we're inspiring people. I mean, people are going to listen to this episode as well as everybody, this episode specifically, and they're going to feel inspired, and they're going to relate to you. They're going to relate to you. They're going to relate to maybe not Ryan, but Tyler.
But I think that this is all good and this is necessary, and I think especially, a lot of the guests appease us or are very diplomatic as to what we're saying, and I think bringing this to the Kukin Brothers show on November 8th
courtesy.
in Mahwah, New Jersey with what's your name?
Johnny Horahan.
What's your name?
Nick Schiffer.
What's your name?
Ryan Mulkey.
What's your name?
Kevin O'Connor.
Plug shameless. No, but all kidding aside, like I think that this is going to be a good conversation for that show because we are thinking in a narrow mindset. We have the blinders on, and I think that what Kevin's going to bring up at the discussion, I think, is going to get the wheels spinning to kind of explore different routes as to how we can change the industry. And I don't, my eyes are open that it doesn't necessarily have to be only through executing at the levels that we want to be executing, because we don't need to be executing at this level. I think there's other paths that we can approach this that may have a more successful rate, a better return for us.
I just feel like, I don't know, I'm more disappointed the more this conversation goes on. Thanks, Kevin.
You can come back anytime.
Yeah. I mean, I did the Skills USA this past year where I did the judging, and I was completely disappointed by that whole system. I hope they're listening because you pack 12 kids into an auditorium instead of being outside, and then you time them, and you try to get 12 tasks done. I watched 12 kids. One kid dropped out, A, because his blade was in the wrong way, and he got to that. He was one of the finalists. But B, the kid that was running the charge that got the most stuff done, he wasn't in it to get 5 tasks done at 100%. He was trying to get all 12 tasks done, even if it sacrificed the other tasks. These are the 12 best kids that came out of Massachusetts. It's all for the wrong reasons.
Tyler was trying to take us out on a high note.
It's all the reasons why we say what we say, but yet you're going to have to break these kids. Even the best kid that was in that group, you have to break him of a habit that he's been taught by a system that's supposed to be bringing these kids into the industry.
But that's where you come in.
Hire 2 more and do it.
That's where you come in, and
No,
that's
I want
where.
to go to Skills USA so I can effectively touch more people.
But they're not. Skills USA doesn't have enough stake in it. Like, and they don't have. They're not in the field. They're not.
But
It's
that's
not
like
the learning.
Everything's been around for so long that people are just going through the motions. They've had your 10 years, and they're just doing what they've been doing.
But that's where you come into play, and that's where you can change things, and that's when there are people reaching out to you who want to work for you, and you ask why. It's because you're already doing it, and that's what you don't understand.
But if
And
I can't become a big company, the right
But
way
you don't
to
need to be a big.
effectively
You
hit
don't
more
need to be a
people-
big company because you have the audience. Like, he's not necessarily. He's speaking to you, but he's not speaking to you. What he's speaking to is what you're pitching and what we're pitching to everyone else who doesn't have the exposure. Like, we have the exposure. You're already pitching what you need to and doing the right thing. But at the same time, maybe what we're pitching to 70,000 or 80,000, 70,000, 40,000, whatever it may be, maybe we need to be pitching something that's broader, more encompassing to everyone else that reaches more people, not just our, little bubble of what we see. And maybe we'll just by sheer numbers, there's going to be more people doing custom builds. There's going to be more people executing details. There's going to be more people finding the clients who want to build the houses that we all believe in, that we think is the right thing to do, just by sheer numbers. But we got to get the people out there in the first place. And you're already doing it. When he's speaking to you, I think that you're seeing it as a personal attack on you and your values and your core beliefs, when in actuality, he's trying to say, hey, you're putting this message out to everyone else, and we're limiting our exposure. Like, we're limiting our reach because we have such a narrow, I don't want to say mindset because it sounds bad, but like, we're targeting a niche customer, and not everyone is that niche customer. And if we want volume, kids coming out, like, at the end of the day, we want volume. And maybe we don't want volume-based work, but we got to get volume out, and then we can weed through it if we have that opportunity.
Is that the good end note?
So November 8th in Mahwah, New Jersey. We'll continue this conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if we can release this. Might have to get a check.
I need to get my blood
Can
pressure
I get a
checked.
deposit?
I just jumped from this old house to this old spec builder. I'm going to have to run this through the sensors.
Uh-oh.
Well, as always, guys, we appreciate you listening. You can find us on all of the podcast channels. Instagram, Modern Craftsman.
You know what? What I need you guys to do is I need you guys to chime in. Okay? Email us, DM us. Really jump on board or get off the horse with what we're doing. And if you back us or if you agree with some of the ideas that were tossed around in the podcast, if you have better stats than Kevin, we'd like to see them. So email us at info@themoderncraftsman.org or hit us up through DM on IG.
Ryan, how can we find you?
At Kuiken Brothers, at Kuiken.
All right, what else other than Instagram? Because Instagram's going to be obsolete in 2 years.
KuikenBrothers.com webpage.
Do you have an address?
Cell phone.
Do you have like a brick and mortar building?
We do. We have 8 stores: Northern New Jersey,
You can
Southern
find
New
them on
York,
the
and new one
website.
coming up in Newark, New Jersey as well.
Ooh,
Man.
big time.
You find all them. Google, website.
Yellow pages.
No, we're out of Yellow Pages.
Okay, sorry.
Kevin, what's your handle on Instagram?
Kevin O'Connor, TOH.
What's your address?
And where did
Not only am I not going to tell it, but you're all going to have to forget it so you never come home again.
like, the
Zap
Men
us.
in Black?
Yes.
That's it. Zap, bang. No, actually, you guys can come back anytime you want, just above the garage. Don't go to the house.
Dinner's up here next time.
John's definitely hiding in your bushes and waiting for you to come out in the morning.
I'm letting air out of those tires tonight before I leave.
Just going to put gunk in my carburetor.
All right, guys.
I don't want him to have a health event because of me.
No.
No, that'd be good.
Is it always like this?
No.
No.
Sorry.
I usually get fired up here and there.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for tuning in for this repost this week with Kevin O'Connor. Again, apologize for the mishap with our technical difficulties, but hopefully this was a good listen. Stay tuned next week. We have Ted Benson from Benson Homes. We're going to talk about panelization again after the Cape Cod episode last week. And I know Johnny, unfortunately, wasn't here for the intro-outro, but he definitely wants you guys to go check out his YouTube. They just released a new series with Benny, and they're hopping on the YouTube train. Now we got to get Tyler.
Yeah, Benny is a former the Modern Craftsman. He was one of the original. He used to do all of our editing originally back in the day.
But also, he was also a former DJ.
Oh yeah,
Let's not forget about that.
yeah. We gotta find some old footage.
What was his name? He had like a
I
DJ
forget.
name.
We're gonna have to find out.
Like Millionaire Benny or something like that.
Benny
Or
Millions.
Yeah, Benny Millions.
Yeah. So we had the guys from Millhaven Homes on this past week, and like Nick said, we had to scrap that. Some of our audio recorded, some of ours didn't. We had internet disconnecting. I think usually I'm like super disappointed if we were to have to re-record something, but I feel like it would serve everyone more justice to just start over on this one.
Agreed.
It was not the most seamless. Not that any of our podcasts are seamless, but this was a train wreck from the get-go. So that'll be good. We'll get them back on and re-record and then re-release that. So sorry for the repost, but that's what we have for this week.
And with that being said, if you guys actually like these filtered in reposts, especially if you're listening on iTunes that only allows you to go back 100 episodes, let us know. Maybe we'll make it more of a habit to bump up some of these older episodes every so often.
Yeah, I was thinking about when all of this happened, it would be good to kind of go through the catalog and pick some out if we were to do this again, and maybe give them the option of a couple of podcasts and what we liked about them and what they went into, so they could potentially kind of go back on old episodes and pick and choose what they want to listen to.
Yeah, so let us know if that is of interest, and we'll get on it. This podcast is brought to you by Duration Moulding and Millwork. Let's talk sustainability. How about a product that uses waste from coal production and turns it into siding and moldings that meet the tough standards of historical architectural review boards? And because it's so durable, you won't have to be worrying about replacing it. Do the right thing for the environment, your client, and your reputation. To learn more about Duration Polyash products, please visit their website at durationmillwork.com.